In this explainer, we're going to break down a science that shapes our world in ways we rarely even see, but we feel it every single day. It's called demography, and it's really the science of people. You hear about this stuff all the time, right? Population booms, aging societies, migration. But what's really driving these massive shifts? How do countries grow or shrink? And what does it all mean for us? Let's dig into the data behind the headlines. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about abstract numbers on a chart. It's about people. Billions of individual lives, choices, and stories that all weave together to create these powerful global trends that we see unfolding all around us. So how in the world do you even start to make sense of a topic this huge? Well, that's where the science of demography comes in. It gives us the tools and the framework to really get a handle on these complex dynamics. So what is it? Simply put, demography is the scientific study of human populations. But it's about way more than just counting heads. It's really about understanding the why and the how behind all those numbers. Demographers tend to focus on three main areas. First, you've got size. Is a population growing or shrinking? Pretty straightforward. Second, it's composition. What's the mix of ages and genders? And third, it's distribution. Where are people actually living? You put those three lenses together and you get a really powerful snapshot of any society. And what's so fascinating is that populations don't just change at random. As countries develop, they tend to follow this remarkably predictable pattern. And there's a model that actually explains this entire journey. And this is it. It's called the demographic transition model. Now, I know it might look a little technical, but it's a brilliant way to see how the relationship between birth rates, that's the purple line, and death rates, the green line, changes over time. And see that gap between them? That gap is what determines population growth, which is that orange line. Let's walk through the four main stages. For most of human history, pretty much every society was in stage 1. You had very high birth rates, but you also had very high death rates from disease, famine, poor sanitation. So the two forces basically balanced each other out, which meant the population stayed pretty stable. Then you hit stage 2, and there's this huge shift. With improvements in medicine and food, the death rate suddenly just plummets. But, and this is the most important part, birth rates stay high. That massive gap that opens up between births and deaths, well, that's what sparks a population explosion. In stage 3, the birth rate finally starts to fall. This is usually driven by things like more education, people moving to cities, and better access to family planning. Now, the population growth starts to slow down, but it keeps going because births still outnumber deaths. Finally, in stage 4, you find a new balance. Both birth rates and death rates are low, and so the population stabilizes again, but this time at a much higher level than before. A lot of developed nations are here today, and some are even heading into a possible stage 5, where birth rates actually fall below death rates, causing the population to shrink. Wild, right? Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this model actually look like out in the real world? To see it in action, let's take a look at a case study, the nation of Pakistan. This is Pakistan's population pyramid, and it is a perfect picture of a country in stage 2 of the model, that early expanding phase. Just look at how wide that base is. That represents a huge number of young people, and it's a clear sign of a high birth rate and a population that is growing very, very quickly. But behind these broad shapes are some stark realities. Even though the overall death rate has fallen, which is what pushed the country into this growth phase, the infant mortality rate is still a major challenge. A rate of 55.7 deaths for every 1,000 live births, that really highlights the kind of public health hurdles that still exist inside this rapid expansion. So what happens when a population expands this fast? Well, this kind of growth creates a massive ripple effect. It puts immense pressure on a nation's entire society, its infrastructure, pretty much everything. And you feel those consequences everywhere. The whole system just struggles to keep pace, leading to serious strains on everything from housing and healthcare to food and jobs. This number reveals a huge challenge. It's called the dependency rate. In a very young population like this one, a staggering 68% of people are considered dependent, meaning they're either too young or too old to work. That places an enormous economic burden on the much smaller group of working-age adults who have to support everyone else. The sheer speed of this change is just hard to wrap your head around. As the source material points out, in just 30 years, the population tripled.
Can you imagine trying to triple the number of schools, hospitals, and homes in a single generation just to keep up?
And this really shows you the two sides of that coin. On one side, you have shortages of the absolute essentials, like food, clean water, and housing. And on the other, you see a rise in societal problems like unemployment and poverty. The two are directly connected.
Now, to understand how these trends might change, you have to look at the individual choices that are driving them. This data on family planning is really telling. While a lot of people stop using contraception because they want to have children, that makes sense, nearly 1 in 5 say it's because of health concerns. It's a powerful reminder of how personal decisions and public health policy are so deeply connected in shaping a nation's future.
Pakistan's story is just one of many. All across the globe, you've got countries at every single stage of this demographic journey. Some are expanding, while others are actually starting to shrink. And it leaves all of us with a final, really fascinating question. What story will our population pyramids tell a generation from now?